I don't want to make a long intro in which I talk about Ascend in its details because, right now the game isn't available. But if you already landed here, you probably know about Ascend, you're looking for answers. So I had the fortune to interview I would say, lead developer or lead producer of Ascend, and he had some interesting things to say. I hope you enjoyed the interview. This is more a way longer interview than I ever had before. He was very nice to me. Be nice to him too. And, just look out for more information coming from Ascend. I hope it comes back, and now enjoy the interview. So I think
Yes.
we can start the formal interview. I would say I don't want you to repeat everything else, but like in short form, just please introduce yourself to the people, tell who you are, like in really short form, and what you do right now.
Yeah, my name is Dr. Albright, and I am the creative director and president for Signal Studios. That's what I'm currently doing.
So I just want to jump straight into the game because I love this game for a really long time. So I just want to gush about that and talk about it with you. So Ascend Hand of Kul. First-hand information, I hope so. You mentioned in our email exchange that you got curbed because of World of Tanks. I just want to know if I understood correctly, and can you just give a quick or long rundown, however you want, why Ascend was ultimately shut down?
Well, try to be careful.
Yes, I know.
So
Yeah.
the reason, yeah. So I don't know. There's some stuff I might not be able to say, but in generally speaking, what happened was Ascend was a Signal IP, and at the time we were working with Microsoft, and we had done Toy Soldiers. I don't know if you remember Toy Soldiers, which was a relatively big hit on arcades. So we were involved with Microsoft as our publisher, and so they funded Ascend. And it was also at the time free to play was not an acceptable business model on console. In fact, it was a violation. So we had to do a lot of convincing and things to get them to approve the free to play business model. And we successfully did that. About the same time, they decided, and other people decided, that free to play on console was a good idea. And so if I remember properly, around the same time, they signed World of Tanks and some other free to play games that were already, well established. And obviously, really big titles. World of Tanks is one of the most successful free to play games. And so they kind of, it seemed their focus kind of changed off doing their own free to play game, which was what Ascend was going to be, versus letting, someone like World of Tanks, handle that. So, right about that same time, Ascend came out, and then essentially, they were going to continue supporting it with, because it's a free to play game, so it's supposed to be an ongoing service game. And we were in negotiations to have them continue supporting that. But as I said, the focus kind of changed, and they basically sunsetted it almost immediately, despite the fact that it was actually a really good moneymaker. At the time, an arcade game, this is kind of pre-Minecraft and games like that. An arcade game that made, a few $100,000 a month was a big deal. And again, the console market wasn't really a free-to-play market. And Ascend, the first month made multiple millions of dollars. I'll just put it at that. So it was an odd decision by them to not continue with it. And then, frankly, because of the way publishing deals are set up, Signal basically just didn't have the resources to support that without a publisher. So the game never got the proper updates. We had an entire post-launch plan for multiplayer co-op. Those things never happened. And then that's kind of where it was left off.
I listening to you now, I think, how was this not a success? Because if we think about today's world, it's all about this live services here, live services there. If you release, for example, Ascend with technology that we have today, I think it would probably blow, for example, the newest release like Anthem right off the park. People would say, "Yeah, I like this game. Let's play this." No, I'm for real here.
Yeah, no,
I'm for real. I would think,
no, and Ascend has a lot of super unique game mechanics that hadn't been done actually. And then the other interesting thing about Ascend is because we were working with Microsoft and it was the 360 or whatever it was, we had to do a lot of weird crap to make all that work. Because it was against whatever live policy or whatever. We had to, the reason why it took 15 minutes to load the game on a console is because we had to actually attach the content updates to, if I remember right, some kind of weird leaderboard technology. Because the consoles just didn't have the backbone, the infrastructure. It wasn't set up for, that kind of, at that time you had to go through CERT just to get a DLC out, so live content updating just wasn't a thing. So we actually had to bastardize a lot of live stuff to make it even work. So I agree. In fact, like I mentioned in my email, it's kind of like become one of my things is trying to get that thing back up because I actually own the IP. Now
I have it sitting on my PC still. I am hopeful that someday I can just open this game, it will update itself, and I can reconnect to the servers.
Cool and unique, and I think, and it has the like you said, I asked that question you asked is the same question I asked myself a lot. I just sit there and go, why wasn't this successful? Because it was actually, like I said, the numbers actually were pretty astronomical for an arcade game of any sort, let alone a free-to-play arcade. So that's always been an interesting thought of mine as well. The interesting thing about free-to-play and those kind of things, though, is to grab. It's a really hard market to crack, and if you crack it, it's cracked, and that's where I don't know. I think if we would have had a publisher like Perfect World or Tencent or one of these kind of free-to-play focused publishers, that I firmly believe Ascend would still be a thing. Actually,
I think so too.
Like the plan, like I said, there was how you could curse other players.
Curse?
Like,
the curse mechanic. That was one of the mechanics I found. Oh, okay, this is like I never seen this, and since that I never seen something even similar to that. The invade mechanic.
Actually,
yeah, please.
Yeah, we actually had that working through a phone. So we had a phone app we were making. So it wasn't because everybody was really excited about the, what do they call it, transmedia experience or whatever. So we had this app. You could actually inject, because it was connected to Xbox Live, you could send curses and those things with your phone to other players that were online. It was pretty cool. But so the plan for that, though, was to expand that whole mechanic into so you could just like connect and actually play co-op or connect and like actually fight each other live. So that was like the next phase of that, which would have been, I think, that the way we connected the single player was kind of the basis for every plan we had in the future, which I thought was really unique, especially at the time. Now there's a few games. I think I played, there's a snowboarding game by Ubisoft where you can kind of see the other players. What is that game?
Snow, I think it's called.
What's that?
Snow, I think it's called Snow. Something like that.
Yeah, it's just one word. Anyways, there's some games with really big companies and really big budgets that kind of have that stuff. You know,
Yeah.
obviously Dark Souls, you can invade other games and
Yes.
stuff. But for a small budget studio, uh, you know, that whole game was made for less than I can't
It,
$6 million or something.
Let me piggyback on
Cheap.
the whole future thing, because you mentioned you were something like 40% done, which I believe, because since we talked last time, I looked at footage, and I know, for example, co-op was planned, like you mentioned, an arena was planned, like PvP, one was one. And what was the general plan for the future of this game? Because I know about those things, but what was there more?
Still have some of the content there. So the general plan is, as you know, the single player is kind of a multiplayer experience, and so you pick your faction. So you have 3 factions. I think it's Void, Dark, and Light. Each one has its own thing, and then you ascend your character after you finish the game, and that character goes off to invade other people's games as kind of boss AI. And so the first stage of that was what we released, which was, you know, you can curse other players. There's a connection. We're tracking it on the server. So we're tracking all the kind of the global, I guess, conflict, but essentially it's not much more than that. It's just kind of like a statistical display. We were going to pump all that to a website so people could just look at it, and then also pump that into an app so people could have the app. That's where they were going to interact with the game from a phone. Then further, we were going to expand the multiplayer into essentially to an arena and just challenge other champions so you could fight in real time. And then further, the other part of that plan was that we were going to make it so up to, I think maybe it was, we didn't, at the time, co-op tech is kind of still a nightmare actually to do co-op because of the saves and all that. But we were going to make it so you could just selectively play together. You know, so instead of just being able to send enemies to we were going to greatly expand the connection from your single player game into a multiplayer game. So you could kind of seamlessly play co-op with other players that you encounter. Make the we were going to expand on the humans quite a bit as well, because they were kind of a major part of the game originally. The fact that you were a giant, and then they became just as a necessity to kind of get the game done. The humans never really became quite as important as they were supposed to be. They just kind of became a fun thing to do, was eat humans for health or get them to crawl on your body and stuff. But we were going to make those like another aspect that you could exploit. Further, we had a bunch of worlds that we were working on, so there was more actual just content. So we had, you know, I think the Highlands was that world. We had a Badlands world, which was all kind of desert with different monsters, creatures, different things, different lore. So we had stuff like that. We had, you know, gameplay modes like endless dungeons, things like that. Basically, you know, when you loaded into the first part of the game and it had all those doors.
I mean, you mean the voice?
It's like where you order the game. There's all the leaderboards. You know how the leaderboards are displayed as characters. Yeah. So you go down in the other room. There's all these doors that have labels on them. In fact, this kind of F, because and all those doors are dynamic. So basically, those doors can lead to anywhere we decide. So they could lead to an endless dungeon, or they can lead to a whole new game world, or they could lead wherever. And that was the idea, that the hub would kind of be where the champions are, and then where you would kind of go to different worlds, the PvP world or whatever. Unfortunately, as proof that we had those plans, those doors actually, some of them have labels on them, I think.
I saw that on a video. I saw that on several videos that the one had like something like Endless Dungeon, which was announced, but I couldn't experience it because it got shut down before. Then there was an arena one, and I think multiplayer co-op was definitely there.
Oh no, the co-op and the multiplayer co-op stuff was going to be done seamlessly, like in the game itself. Yeah. So what you have to understand is, if you have a free to play game that requires a server to even run, um, at that time you're looking at 30, 40 people, and like I said, the way the publishing deals work typically is you don't get any of the money the game is making until you've recouped the money they spent on the game itself. And that's usually based on a percentage. So hypothetically, and this is not what our Ascend deal was, this is just hypothetical. If you were to get $100,000 from a publisher to make something, that game, and you had a 10% royalty, a lot of times that game would have to make $1 million before you were in a royalty situation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. There's a hard limiter and a soft limiter. Yeah.
The recoup often is calculated on your percentage, not on the actual game revenue. So if the game revenue was $7 million, the game cost you $3.5 million to make, and your royalty rate was 50%, you would have recouped at $7 million.
Yeah.
So the point is that as a developer, a lot of the fans get on developers. Like, we took a lot of heat for the Ascend thing. But the truth of it is that you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars a month at the time to try to support that. The support plan is millions of dollars, and there's just no way for a small developer to fund that. They don't even if their game is successful, a lot of times they're not getting any actual cash flow from that. If they are, often delayed 6 months, a year,
Mm-hmm.
So, it just is a really hard thing to do. That said, that was 2015, and now it's a little bit different, I think.
I mean, so, I thought a lot about it, and the thing was, like, this could work. Like, nowadays, I would say, oh, this could work as a Kickstarter. I don't know how many people are still interested in this game, because a lot of people would come and say, oh, this is copying Dark Souls, even though it's not. It's a completely different target audience.
So we even get that. Like, we get that. Like, you're copying Dark Souls. I was like, no, we thought of this like in 2000.
Yes. Plus, it's a.
But that's what happened.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the standard thing that happens. Toy Soldiers was kind of like the first one of those. Well, now it's nothing, but at the time, like, there was no tower defense games where you could control the units and kind of that mix up of genres, and only took about 5 seconds for those things to pop up everywhere. And then you kind of get lost in the shuffle. But yeah, Ascend is still unique. Dark Souls is a different thing.
Yes, it's a completely different
Ascend
game.
Is still, it's a different. I think Ascend is still a unique, different experience. The idea behind Ascend, even though, and I think I would like to redo it too, because I feel like there was a lot of clunkiness and things that wouldn't necessarily or easily addressed nowadays that weren't so easily addressed before.
That's correct.
The idea with Ascend was that it was more like, kind of an old school RPG. You kind of just batten crap up, and you're just trying to be the most biggest badass you can be.
Yeah.
Real kind of hack and slash, and mixed, and then on top, Dark Souls is kind of this, first of all, Dark Souls is amazing, and it's a lot more, I have mad respect, but it's just a different thing,
Yeah,
it's
I would
something, I guess.
I would summarize it more like Dark Souls is a hardcore, slow burning action combat. Ascend was more like a power fantasy of being a literal titan. You are like 100 times bigger than a small human, and you use them as resources, as weapons and whatever.
It's kind of like Ascend. I always kind of want to, like, Toy Soldiers kind of had this. I'm really interested in history and violent things and stuff, but I'm not like morbid.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense. So, like with Toy Soldiers, it was like World War I's a really morbid topic, and it's actually a pretty serious, dark time. But it's also important, and there's a lot of crazy, interesting things that happened at the time, and so we kind of approached it with, hey, let's make it toys, and then this bad stuff might not be so bad. And with Ascend, it's kind of the same thing. I wanted to make a game that was like kind of super violent and rock and roll, kind of like, I was almost thinking of like Vikings and the lore of, which I guess is almost like American Gods. Do you watch that show on
Yes,
Stars?
yeah, of course. One of the best shows I think in the last 2 years.
Kind of that kind of rock and roll, just like gaudy, colorful, just, now I'm gonna kill these 20 monsters, however, and then I'm gonna eat some humans, and then I'm gonna bash some guy, and then I'm gonna scream, and then I'm gonna make an announcement to the whole crowd by ascending, and it does that flash in everybody's game. It's kind of like that. It's kind of like an 80s thing or something that's,
Yeah, a really flashy version of.
I don't know if it's politically anymore.
Yeah, I mean,
probably,
we can. It's on my channel. We can be a little apolitical. I mean, everyone can do whatever they want, but I would say it's like a flashy version. If we would compare it to Dark Souls, it's a flashy version of Dark Souls. Like everything has more. It has definitely more colors. It's brighter.
Well, and the other thing is Dark Souls, obviously, like AAA and all that stuff. It's kind of a different market. Even I hesitate to compare my little Ascend game to them because they were. I have a lot of respect for them.
Yeah. Of course. I had something else. Actually, talking about Toy Soldiers and the whole Signa Studios in general. So you started with the Toy Soldiers series. You move on to Ascend, then released I think a mobile game called Sleeping Prince. Then worked on Salvage Land, which is in early access still in 2019, and now it has a different studio as far as I know. And in 2018, you guys released a game called Call of Guardians with the studio Ganho, which I could not find on the App Store, at least not in Germany. But it looks like something that
It's not actually released yet.
Oh, it's not released. Okay, so then I wrong info here. So
they have it in soft launch, so it's it's available in I think Malaysia or someplace.
Okay, so but here's my actual question. But here's my actual question: how is this journey? How was this journey? Because these are two completely different games and even target audiences. And what is Signa Studio doing right now?
So the journey of you mean going from Toy Soldiers to Ascend to Sleeping Prince to Savage, you're talking about different, that's just me doing different things. I just, they kind of have similarities in that they're the same bent. Like I said, Ascend, there's actually, if you really think about it, there's Ascend and Toy Soldiers have similarities, they're different genres, but the reason for Ascend is, I worked at Snowblind and things like that. I like RPGs actually. But I like fun ones. My favorite game is actually Fallout. So I like that kind of genre. But when you're working with small budgets and small teams, you have to kind of consider what's possible. So if you want to make a game like Dark Souls, but your Signal, you have to actually stylize it and kind of feature it out and scope it in such a way that you could actually accomplish it. So that's kind of sometimes the motivation behind some of those things as well. You're not going to be able to compete with Red Dead Redemption 2 and all the interactivity, for example. So you kind of switch your style. You just basically don't try to compete with them. Anyways, so that kind of, even though those genres are seemingly disparate, there's similarity there. And then sometimes when you're running a small studio, some of those decisions are just survival decisions. So, sometimes you make a game just because somebody will sign it. I know that sounds kind of disappointing probably, but that sometimes is the case, right? So,
to me, it's more
somebody comes to you.
No, to me, it sounds more like
it's just reality.
Yeah, you have to keep your studio afloat and your people happy and working. Because if you don't, you will have to fire them. So for me, it makes sense. I know a lot of people see it differently, but
sometimes you're making Savage Lands we actually turned over because we just didn't have the people or team to work on it. But so it kind of got in early access trap, and so I turned it over so we don't really own that anymore. But at the time we had good intentions, and we wanted to put out a game that made money without a publisher was kind of the impetus for that. Again, it was a business decision as much as anything else. And again, you do want to try to make the games you you really like and love. But sometimes it really does come down to just money, and even like the game we're coming out with, Gung Ho, that was it's much different than the one we proposed originally. I don't want to get into it or anything, but it just, that's what happens when you work with a publisher. Yeah, I'm not saying it's bad or good. They also bring good things to the table, like money, and you need it. So, but yeah, and currently we're just waiting for the, strangely enough, and the reason why your email, I do get a ton of emails about Ascend, actually, very similar to what yours, and it's always the same thing. It's, man, Ascend was fun. Where'd it go? Why is it gone? Yes. It was unique. I haven't seen anything like it. Turn it back on, please. So I'm happy to say that I am actively exploring that possibility. Is one of the things we're thinking of doing. And then Ascend, we're just waiting for the Gung Ho thing to actually release, but that's not going to be till like the summer.
The main reason I remembered Ascend was I was looking through my Steam stuff, and I suddenly see this thing in my apps, because I like to keep it clean. I like to get apps off, and then suddenly I see this Ascend, and it triggers something. I'm like, I can download it, right? Like, I download it, and I see, there's no store page. Store page is gone. I can't even find it. So I go to the internet, and I look at, everyone, in 2013 it was shut off. Why? How did I miss that? And then I was, at the same time, I started my YouTube channel. So okay, I'm gonna try to find the right person, because I want to know why. Because there was no documentation why Ascend got shut down, and you you explained it perfectly, why and what the whole background was. So now I have something that I can show to people. This is why, and maybe even a hub. If you can, you could use me a little bit in that case to see, are there still people that want to play this game?
There are. I know there are, because we do get the. I get the emails still. So we get a lot of emails. We had it's every now and then I get, some programmer or something pinging me going, how can I emulate the servers or like that?
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it's a thing. And, I think it's our game. I'm not in an egotistical sense, but, like you said, I just still don't see anything that was like that. And I think, there was a pretty hardcore audience for it, and I know that because I have the numbers, and I know, it was, downloaded for 4 million times. I mean, on arcade. So and it had a base, especially on 360. That was the Steam was kind of the afterthought that we were forced to put up. Don't say that. Please don't say that.
No problem. But
we weren't forced to do that. No. That's not what happened.
But just to like show a little bit of stuff. Jim Sterling, one of the most critical persons probably in this review.
Oh, yeah.
He played it.
Super positive Ascend review.
Yes.
Right? Yes.
And I'm like, how?
I remember.
Yes. Like as
that's hilarious. You brought that up. That made the rounds at Signal right after launch, because everybody was like, "Holy shit, Jim Sterling actually gave it a good review," and we were all just shocked.
So if I was a manager, right, and I'm like looking at Signal Studios and seeing, oh my god, one of the biggest reviewers that has a huge audience tells people that this game is actually good and he wants to look at it. How can you shut it down? That's why, like, one of the most ununderstandable things I ever saw.
You got to realize that I don't think people sometimes. So a lot of people just jump on. You can see the Steam forums and all that, and how toxic. I hate to use buzzwords, but they are just toxic. It's like, the thing is people don't understand is Ascend was actually a game that I thought up, and it's tragic for me that it gets taken down. I don't want it taken down. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know.
But they tend to think that they think that you're out there basically trying to steal money from them or something. And it's really weird because, if there's anyone that wants to send up and wants it to be, doing well and have a user base and, no bugs and everything to be great, that would be me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When it gets taken down, like I said, what happens is because our name's all over it, we're the ones that everybody blames us. And, we're at fault in some of that. There's no question because we're part of it. But those decisions are complicated. The reason things happen, especially in game industry, they're really complicated. It's not just cut and dry. Ascend actually was a financially successful game in the free-to-play realm. It actually had not just okay numbers, it had exceptional numbers as far as like ARPU and, all the classic ways to analyze that stuff. Ascend had all that. So that really wasn't what it was about. It was literally, it had all that, have the resources to put into it, and Microsoft was part of the equation. Another thing people don't understand that they should is when you have a company attached to something, and then that's usually enough for another big company to just say, sorry, no way, because they don't like that complication. So it's not that easy. When you see a developer turn around and get another company to support a game that was already supported, which you see occasionally, that developer went through a lot of hoops to make that happen. And it's really, because these big companies will sit on their IP and not just purposefully, and not do anything, just purposefully. It's amazing. Like they'll actually, they don't care. Like you can't even get the IP back if it's yours, and it means no money to them. They just don't give a shit. They're just going to sit on it because they don't want anybody else to do anything. Things like that.
I have to defend a little bit. Not defend, but I have to say, okay, from a business standpoint, I actually majored in this field, so I know a little bit of that. It's rather keeping others from making money than someone making money out of IP that you have the rights to. But of course, it's not moral. I would hate to do that myself. But let's talk a little bit about that, about through which hoops a company has to go to get partnered or have a publisher. So how was this working environment with Microsoft, and how do you get there? What did you do to get there?
Well, what I did was I was working at Snowblind at the time, and we were crunching a lot. And I just decided if I was going to work a lot, it would be best if I did that for myself. I didn't mind too much. I really enjoyed the work. So it's not like I don't have any labor complaints or anything like that. I'm fine with it. I think you should work hard to succeed and all that. So it wasn't really about working hard. It was more about if I am going to work hard, I should do it for myself. So that's why I started it. And then I had a couple partners that initially started it with us. At the time, getting funding from a publisher for small deals wasn't really a thing. This was right before the iOS store came out. I think, if I remember right, Arcade had just come out, and there was a few like kind of Twitch dual stick shooter games on Arcade and stuff like that. So with Toy Soldiers, we spent a year just making our own stuff before we even went out and tried to get any money. That's important. You want to, especially nowadays, it's so easy to have something to show with Unity and all that. Have something. And so that helped a lot. But at the time, nobody was funding small projects. It was either, publisher games or movie games, stuff like that. Thankfully, I went to a few places. They were all interested in the game. But like I said, they didn't have any digital numbers, so they really didn't have anything to base like what they should fund it for. Does that make sense? Because no one's publishing their digital figures, so nobody really knows that the digital market's going to be huge yet. So like they're going, well, you want $500,000 to make this game, but we have no idea how much digital games even sell. However, thankfully, we did go to Microsoft, and his name was Ken Lobb, actually was a creative director, and he kind of saved the project because he saw the potential of it. And, I'll always be super grateful to him because he kind of reversed. He's the one that I think behind the scenes kind of supplanted into Microsoft to fund the game. And so they took it on, I think probably also because they knew that digital sales was a big thing because they had their own marketplace at the time. So they took it on. After about a year, they funded it. And then initially, they thought it was going to do okay. It did a lot better. So they instantly wanted to do more games, of course. Me being naive at the time, again, remember there's a delay in getting any money or anything. So we released Toy Soldiers and we have no money. And now we have like 15 employees, and And then Microsoft's going, hey, you want to sign a multi-game deal? And we're like, sure. Again, business decision, right? And I don't. That's just how it works. So we signed a multi-game deal with Microsoft at that time, and that's where Ascend got attached to Microsoft, and but it gave us a little short-term security, and that's basically kind of how it went. And then Toy Soldiers ended up being a pretty big hit for arcade, and in that time frame, Xbox One came out, and Microsoft kind of started changing their business initiatives and moving away from arcade. If you look at Xbox One, there's no arcade or anything like that. So we were kind of caught up in that transitional period. And I think Microsoft is now swinging back to kind of funding third parties. But, that's basically the journey. And then, we went out, and again, the way it works is you basically, once you have established yourself, like, we made Toy Soldiers and it made money. So we know what we're doing. So now, at that point, you can go to publishers with a PowerPoint and say, look, this is what we want to do. And, at that point, you can kind of not have something.
Yeah.
Because you have a reputation and name and people know who you are. But that kind of goes away after time.
Yeah, of course.
You kind of have to go back and, hey, look at this thing we're making. It's kind of getting to the point. It's kind of getting to the point now where, unless you get alternative financing, you pretty much have to have a launched game with numbers already to get money from somebody. That's kind of where it's headed, unless you're, I don't know who's got the clout to get money now, but one of those guys, Cliffy B back in the day or something, That's kind of how what I've noticed. It's kind of getting back to the early 2000s where you're either asking for $100 million to make the next Fortnite, or you're asking for $5 to pay a streamer, for the game you already made. That's a lot of the publishers now are kind of these. I don't want to be disparaging, but they're kind of they don't really serve too much of a function. They don't even finance the development, which is actually the part that everyone needs. It's not you don't really need a publisher for marketing anymore, right? It used to be important. That's all changed. So I don't struggle with what the purpose of a publisher is besides money.
You mentioned Cliffy B. I mean, his company crashed and burned this year or last year. I don't know. I mean, I thought Lawbreakers would be a hit, but afterwards, in hindsight, everyone agrees that he should have gone free to play.
Free to play's tough, dude. If it doesn't take, this is why Ascend's so powerful, right? Trust me, we had a couple of flops too. And if you put out a free to play game and it doesn't have numbers immediately, you're basically screwed. Fortnite is like a huge exception to that rule.
Yes.
If you remember, Fortnite came out, it wasn't popular. I think it might even have been 6 months before it was popular
crashing.
at all.
It was crashing.
So
it was crashing and burning.
Yeah, it was crashing. In fact, I have a 17-year-old son who does nothing but play Fortnite with his friends now. And when he first downloaded that game, he was like, this is stupid. But now he loves it, of course. Now it's a phenomenon. The thing about what happened to Cliffy B is I don't know anything about it. But, again, it's like, once that launch, you're selling everybody on this promise, right? Then launch comes and reality hits. And, unfortunately, when you're working on like a free-to-play game, the consumers have this expectation, and then you also have this small group of niche people that have spent money on it, and now you have all this regulatory things that you have to deal with.
Exactly.
And couple that with your game is actually losing money to the tune of at least a few $100,000 a month, probably millions potentially. That's a real tough nut to swallow. Again, sometimes I wish that people, mainly the consumers in the world, would have a little more understanding towards, difficulty with to try to get these products are complicated. It is a complicated. I mean, this. It's a complicated thing to make these network things. It's not the bar for making a video game. Well, a lot of things like making a single player platformy indie thing is I could make you one myself in a month with Unity. I don't need anything for that. Making a game like Ascend with all that networking, or even just the silly phone network games. I mean, we're working on Call Guardians. It's a real time network thing. I mean, it's a nightmare trying to get that every country, every phone, every connection possibility, disconnection possibility.
Yeah.
So that bar's gone up a lot, and people, man, they're quick to call everybody idiots. It's kind of interesting, actually. And like I said, there's no one that wants any of those lawbreaker games or whatever to work out more than Goofy B himself, probably,
Yeah.
So any decisions he's making after that are really tough decisions for him to make. They're, I would just guess, again, I don't know, but
Yeah.
I've been there, and it's tough to deal with.
I mean,
but the reward can be great.
He made some tactical mistakes, like putting, or at least playing into the hand of, this is the pendant or the anti Overwatch, which you don't fight against Blizzard. Everyone knows that. Either you play with them, but let's talk.
One of the first businesses I ever tried to start, I went in there and said, "This is the new Windows," and everybody was. I thought about. As soon as I said that, I had no idea. I was young, right? And I had this idea to do this. And I actually got in front of some investors and stuff. And every time I went in there, I was such an idiot. I would start off with how I was going to take down Microsoft Windows. And every time I said that, the first thing every meeting I went to, the first thing the VC people would be like, "Are you a total idiot?" Essentially in some form. Okay. And then I would be like, "No, I'm telling you, I can change the world." And they would be like, "Okay, we're out." And I just never understood I thought they would appreciate the passion and the size of the market, even though it's just stupid. Now I know after experience, that was just the dumbest thing I could have ever said. So yes, I understand that comment.
We talked about customers earlier. Let's talk a little bit about customers. I'm a customer myself, but I also understand a few things about it. Because I work with customers, basically. But I would ask you afterwards what you think about it, and in general. I have a problem with customers in general because they do sometimes things like, let's take the easiest example, Anthem. They know Anthem is going to be a bad game with bad connection, bad loading. Everything was written on the walls, and still people pre-order this game and buy this game. I hate this, and I think we are responsible for example, Hand of Kul failing because people then the business people look at those numbers and say, but this is better, even though we put half the money, even though the game is not even finished or completely broken. What do you think about it, and maybe how to solve it?
So I think I have some pretty strong opinions about these kind of things. I believe that what's happened is the internet. So it's kind of both people's fault, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So we've created simultaneously a kind of a subscription, your product is never dead culture. Even in hardware, say iPhone 1, 2, 3, 4, it's almost like you're subscribing to buying phones anymore, right?
Yeah.
So there's not this. With the internet and the way we're all connected, and the way YouTube's risen to be kind of an entertainment thing or whatever, all those things essentially have caused, I think, consumers to expect always-on products and products to be created in an always-on way. And so the problem with that is basically once I have the internet, I don't need to make sure that my game is completely bug-free before I launch it, because I can just make a patch, right?
Yeah.
In exchange, so people tend to blame the companies for that. But the reason they're doing that is because consumers are demanding those kind of responses. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah. So it's kind of a twofold problem that I think actually is just kind of going to degrade the quality of things forever, personally, because there is no way to do. So, why would I sit on Ascend until it's finished? Why wouldn't I put it out really early and try to make money? I'm saying this kind of flippantly, not purposefully. You know what I mean? And then why wouldn't I just fix it as people are paying me, because they're going to bitch anyways, right? It doesn't matter. When you put out a game, you're going to get bitched at no matter what. The other thing is with networking games, what consumers need to understand is a lot of times it's not even possible for people to accurately test how that is going to you don't have any real tests. Beta tests and things are, whatever.
Dead.
Ultimately, one of the ways you test your network game is to just fucking release it
Yeah.
and see what happens. And that's where you find the bugs. And unfortunately, sometimes there's no other way to find them. Does that make sense? Like,
yes, in the
go ahead.
In the commercial industry, IT industry where I work, there are like standard network tests. I don't know how well it's integrated into gaming, but often I found like basic mistakes. Like it all began with most early access titles, and today's Steam has still problems with it. For example, even the menu doesn't work. It's like,
you mean in Ascend?
No. Don't mean Ascend. I mean in general, this product as a service.
Yeah, these aren't games suck. Like they're not. IT is
hard.
We're not. I mean, if you work in IT, you understand this. There's a lot more crap going on.
Yes, in the background
that can go wrong in the background of a game. It's more program, but there's a lot of data stuff or web stuff. It's not nearly as complicated to keep things intact or simulate physics, things like that. And I'm not saying they're not doable by either party. What I'm saying is that there's just this magnitude of things that can go wrong. The reason why, we're a long way from ever getting Netflix of games is because streaming games is not a viable thing still. Yes. No matter what, it's a viable thing in a lab or in some crazy network environment, but it is not viable to the general population. We still have really bad connections in the world, and people don't understand that when they live in San Francisco for some reason. I guess they don't understand that San Francisco is not a good, the rest of the world not like San Francisco. So,
yeah.
Either way, the network problems in a game, again, they can just be, a lot of times they're not necessarily the network part. It's like how the network is relating to the gameplay and how it's causing problems in the gameplay itself. And then put that on top of how responsive that has to be to player input and the competitive. Yeah. And if it's a competitive game, it's almost like a slot machine. We actually made, those things have super high test tolerance. So yes, we do have stress testing. Everyone does all the same testing that anyone else does. But again, until you actually have 4 million people or whatever pinging forgive me if this sounds idiotic, but some achievement or something all at the same time, or some game states that need to be tracked or physics that need to be predictive or whatever. That just is a whole different ballgame. And it's look at Call of Duty. What are they on there?
Yeah.
They're pretty good at that, and they still have terrible launches.
Yeah.
And think of how long they've been working on network gameplay.
Yeah.
And they put out a game. It still crumbles for the first 2 weeks, no matter what,
Yeah.
It's just the way it goes. And I know everybody gets pissed, but in the end, it always works out a lot of times, right?
I mean,
and then, there's some people, Valve, Blizzard, they have the luxury of, they've already tested their crap, and they spend 12 years making stuff, that's just not realistic usually.
Yeah, but I understand I understand why. I mean, one thing I think customers or the users don't understand, and where developers sometimes they do it on purpose, sometimes not on purpose, is wording. For example, a lot of early access call their games pre-alpha, but already have like a decent looking graphic. Everything is working fine and has already been tested in-house, and it has already been tested with maybe test players. That means actually this is a beta, is a release candidate. In the IT world, this is a release candidate. And that means actually they should call it a release candidate instead of using beta, because it's not a beta, it's already out of beta.
Right.
And that's what the wording is sometimes weird.
Well, a lot of tech companies do that, right? They keep their websites and their apps in beta forever.
Yeah.
Wasn't that a thing? Google had beta on their, I can't remember, forever, right?
Yeah.
I think that in the term of Ascend, we did beta for like 2 months, right?
Yeah.
The problem with the Send, for example, is we only had access to like I think at the most 10,000 people, right?
But as far as I
And
can
then
remember, Ascend was like
beta.
it was in beta, but when I played it, it was I think out of beta, and it was already like it could play. It was a viable product. You could play from the beginning to the end.
Yeah, but it's not. It was. I'm talking about before it was released to the public. We had a beta, and it was like I think at the most we could get was a couple thousand people to play it at once. My point is that it's impossible to achieve. You know, you can do your stress testing, which we do. You know, AWS, all that crap, but ultimately, even if you're EA, you're never going to have the volume of players to test that you get from a release ever.
For sure.
Some of those big names do, you know, like obviously Fallout can put out a beta and they get large numbers, but even then it's still not a good, accurate test. And listen, I agree. I'm not railing on consumers. I am a consumer too. And I get, you know, I think that's the part everybody forgets is like, that's all. It's just to consider that the thing, it's a lot more complicated than some evil capitalist pig is trying to rip people off. That's all. And a lot of times the person that's losing the most money and actually the most disappointed by the failure is the person that did the game itself.
For sure.
They're the ones they're the ones that put all their resources, time, money. You know, there was all this promise, you know, I'm sure Cliffy B was hoping that his studio was bought by now or whatever. He was working on the next Clash Royale. Or maybe he's happy and just chilling with his Lamborghini or whatever he does.
Whatever, yeah.
But anyways, it's not, I don't like ripping on customers because obviously, like, and that's the other thing is you're making these things, you want people to buy them, right? You want customers.
Yeah, so, of course.
You know, it's really, you know, sometimes I sit back even with my minor successes like Toy Soldier. I think, oh, it's kind of cool that, you know, I made this thing and, you know, more than a few million people played it. You know, sometimes that, you know, that's cool. Unfortunately, like I said, to keep doing it though is a business. It's kind of this, that's another problem with, I think, the game industry is there's kind of this mashup that has to happen between like kind of flaky creative people and what they want to do versus like business, you know? And, I think in other industries, the business part is a lot more clear cut. When you make an IP, there's no matter what data you have, you know, for example, The Sleeping Prince had great soft launch numbers actually, and then when we put it out, it just flopped, and I have no idea still why.
I
might have just didn't work out.
I might have an idea. It's because it's mobile, and mobile has a different kind of market than typical PC games or even console games.
Yeah, we understand that. Yes, no, and we understand that. But what I'm saying is we soft launched it in mobile, and it had really good soft launch numbers on mobile. And then when we released it, the numbers were not even close. It was just the weirdest thing. My point is it's nearly impossible to predict the outcome of your video game endeavor
because it's art mixed with.
So there's some weird things. Yeah, it just doesn't make any sense a lot of times, right? What becomes popular and what doesn't. So we have to get a lot better about being predictive on that stuff somehow.
You mentioned
what people really want to play.
You mentioned Toy Soldiers a lot, and I didn't have the chance to play it. I saw a lot of it, and now that I'm remembering a little bit of stuff, I actually saw another big YouTuber called Super Bunny Hop cover this game years ago. So I don't. There are some things like when I remember back, I didn't know Signal Studios made so many games that were hugely successful and actually covered by, of course, huge media people. And then like, where are they? What they are doing?
Because like I said, we had that multi-game thing with Microsoft, and that transitioned into Toy Soldiers 3, which ended up getting shoved off onto Ubisoft. And that game didn't do well. And there was a bunch of crap behind that. It wasn't. Toy Soldiers 3 is not a good game. I don't mind admitting that. You know, it sold okay, but then we ended up. From that, we started prototyping. We were doing some Oculus stuff.
Oh, that could work good. That could work fine in the Toy Soldiers universe.
This was before they even came. This was like 2015, before it was launched. And we actually signed to do a couple Oculus things, but then those got canceled. And then we were working with Gung Ho on a console concept, and then we just kind of kept working with Gung Ho on different kind of prototypes, and then we ended up that slowly turned into this mobile game, which is what we've been working on. And then now that it's the core of it was done, Gung Ho is actually doing whatever they're doing with it, and then they're going to release it. But like I said, that's not till the summer. And in the meantime, we're just kind of chilling, making stuff, and then, like I said, kind of looking. Probably the most active thing, I actually, strangely and coincidentally enough, is looking into how to maybe get this Ascend stuff going again.
Okay.
That seems to be the most interesting thing to me right now.
I think we're getting close to the end, because I think we're coming back to the beginning. But thank you for agreeing to the interview. It's very nice of you. Not everyone even answers. If you have something to say to the people that are listening, now is your time. Plug everything. Say anything you want, except for illegal stuff.
Hi. Go Ascend. I'm not really sure. Again, I appreciate the fact that you are interested in Ascend, and like I said, I'm pretty confident there's enough interest in it that we might, hopefully within a few months, maybe be able to see it up and running again in some form. That's the goal.
Okay, good. Thank you very much.
Not a few months, before 2020. How about that? I don't want to wait. The emails start to kind of trickle after time,
Yeah.
So we don't want to wait too long, but we're going to give it a go, I think.
Okay. Thank you very much. Here I have to thank Gamer Zombie for letting me use his footage for the whole video without me having to pay anything. Thanks for that. Thank you very much. I hope you all enjoyed the interview, and I hope it's good info you get from here. Like always, don't forget to subscribe, comment, leave a like, and maybe ring the bell if you want to. And take care of yourselves. Have a nice day, and we will see each other next time.